Today, we'll be showing you the proper hose trimming and bleed procedure for your Hayes Dominion A4 brake. When trimming your hose length, you will need a hydraulic hose cutter, a colored marker or paint pen, a replacement compression nut and bushing, an 8mm flare nut wrench, an 8mm crow's foot, and a torque wrench. When bleeding your Dominion brake, you will need the following tools: a 5, 4, and 3mm hex key, a T10 Torx wrench, a T10 Torx bit, 3mm Allen bit, torque wrench, safety glasses, protective gloves, pad spacer, isopropyl alcohol, lint-free shop towels, a handlebar, and our Dominion bleed kit. Let's begin with trimming your hose length. Once you have determined your desired hose length, mark the spot on the hose with a colored marker or paint pen. Slide your nose cone off your master cylinder down past the marked location. Using your hydraulic hose cutter, create a clean and perpendicular cut at your mark. Slide your new compression nut over your hose with the threads pointing towards the master cylinder. Next, you'll need to install your new compression bushing. To ensure your bushing is fully seated, mark your hose 3mm down from your cut. Push your bushing onto the hose using the underside of your workbench until it reaches your mark. Set your freshly cut hose aside and turn your attention to the master cylinder. Using your 8mm flare nut wrench, remove the old compression nut by turning counterclockwise. Once removed, rock the hose back and forth while pulling outward until the compression bushing breaks free from the master cylinder. Remove the hose completely and set aside. Insert your trimmed hose and begin threading the new compression plug into the master cylinder using your 8mm flare nut wrench. With an 8mm crow's foot and your torque wrench, torque your compression nut to 70 inch-pounds or 8 Nm. Clean your master cylinder using isopropyl alcohol. You will now need to bleed your brake. Step 1. Prep work. To ensure a proper bleed, we recommend removing both your caliper and master cylinder from your bike. This will make it easier to manage both the caliper and the master cylinder syringes and prevent any brake fluid from contacting the other components of your bike. Start by removing the caliper from your frame using a 5mm hex key. Once removed, use the thick end of your pad spacer to push the pistons back into their bores. Using your 3mm hex key, remove the kingpin from your caliper and remove the pads. Once the pads are removed, install your Dominion bleed block found in the bleed kit. Step 2. Position of the caliper and master cylinder. Clamp another handlebar into a repair stand and attach your master cylinder. Position the bar so that it is 45 degrees from horizontal and position the master cylinder 45 degrees from the bottom of the bar. This positions the bleed port at the highest point in the reservoir. Place your caliper slightly lower than your master cylinder with the bleed ports facing upwards. Step 3. The bleed process. Now that your master cylinder and caliper are both in their proper bleeding positions, you will need to prepare your syringes. First, fill the first syringe 3/4 full of fresh .5.1 fluid and the second syringe to only 1/4 full. Eliminate any air from the syringes. Remove either bleed screw from the caliper and attach the 3/4 full syringe. Next, remove the bleed screw from the master cylinder and attach your remaining syringe. Pull a small vacuum from the caliper syringe to remove any air that may have been introduced during installation of the syringe. Start by pushing fluid from the caliper to the master cylinder. It is best to aid the fluid transfer from one syringe to the other by applying light pressure to the underside of the receiving syringe's plunger. Repeat the fluid transfer back and forth until all air is removed from the system. Once there are no air bubbles, push all the fluid from the caliper syringe to the master cylinder while flicking the lever several times and then return the fluid back. Pull a slight vacuum at the master cylinder to remove any remaining air bubbles, then add positive pressure by slightly depressing the plunger of the syringe. Add positive pressure from the caliper syringe and remove it from the caliper. Reinstall the bleed screw using a T10 Torx and torque to 12 inch-pounds or 1.5 Newton meters. Step 4. Two-stroke. If air has been introduced into the system from a caliper rebuild, you can utilize our new two-stroke caliper technology to guarantee all the air is removed from the caliper for a perfect bleed. With the caliper lower than the MC, remove the other bleed screw and repeat the entire bleed process. Remove the syringe and install the bleed screw with your T10 Torx and torque to 12 inch-pounds or 1.5 Newton meters. Once you're finished bleeding through the MC, add slight positive pressure to the master cylinder and remove the syringe from the master cylinder, and install the bleed screw using the T10 Torx and torque to 12 inch-pounds or 1.5 Newton meters. Clean your brake with isopropyl alcohol and check your brake for proper function. To guarantee a perfect bleed, you can utilize a second feature of the two-stroke caliper technology. This feature of the two-stroke system allows you to ensure that all the air is removed from the caliper by performing a fluid flush of the caliper only. Simply follow the same bleed procedure as before, but with both syringes attached to each bleed port on the caliper. Remember to add positive pressure to each syringe before removing it at the end of the bleed. Install the bleed screws using your T10 Torx and torque to 12 inch-pounds or 1.5 Newton meter. Clean your caliper with isopropyl alcohol and check for proper function. Reinstall your pads and tighten the kingpin using your 3mm hex and torque to 30 inch-pounds or 3.5 Newton meter. At this point, you can use the thin side of your pad spacer to simulate a rotor and to center your pads by squeezing your lever 5 times with the pad spacer inserted between the pads. Reinstall the freshly bled brake following our Dominion A4 installation guide and enjoy the ride. For information on the Dominion A4 installation guide, our conditional lifetime leak-proof warranty, caliper service, or for a word-based summary of this process, please refer to our support section at hayesbrake.com/support. Thank you and enjoy the ride.